What is the difference between focal length and focal depth? Hi, my name is Gabo Bruno, and in this video I will explain you and show you the examples about focal length and focal depth and how you can use it to increase the quality of your photography. So let me show you my camera. This is one of my cameras, and this is a zoom lens, and I have another one lens which is not zoom. This is fixed lens, 50 millimeters. So focal length of this lens is 50 millimeters. It means how far it is from, let's say, from the glass inside the lens to the chip. This 50 millimeters, this was many years, maybe let's say 20-30 years ago, this was the only lens the photographers had, and the camera was sold with this kind of lens, and any zoom had to be purchased. I remember the time, maybe 1980s, where zoom lens existed only for video camera, and for photo camera this was very rare and very expensive, and we as the photographers had to buy fixed lens, but maybe 80 millimeters, 120 millimeters, etc. Now this kind of lens is very rare. In fact, each professional photographer has it, because this lens has a very big aperture, which is 1.8, and I will explain you how this aperture is important when we are talking about focal depth. So if I go back to my zoom camera, this is zoom from 18 millimeters to 200 millimeters. So if we say about 18 millimeters, so means that the center point is somewhere here in the camera, and 80 millimeters is something like this. This is distance to the chip. If I go to 200 millimeters, so you see this is the whole distance between front of lens to the chip. So focal length is the distance. In zoom it's very difficult to measure, because this center point of the lens is somewhere inside and is moving. But you have written it here on the ring. You have the scale from, for example, this from 18 to 200 millimeters. And I will show you about I will tell you now about focal depth. Focal depth is a distance in which the object is focused. Now I am focused in the camera, and now I will switch to manual focus. So now I will show you the example of focal depth. I'm now very close to my camera. As you can see, I am focused, but I switch the camera to manual focus, so it will not refocus as I move. So I am moving now, and you can see that I am not focused as I move behind. And this is the focal depth. Focal depth is the distance in which I am still focused or I am not focused. In fact, if you make a photo of, for example, model, then you can blur the behind, and it will be the similar effect as is this focal depth. The difference is that in focal depth, the objects which are close to me are not so blurred as the objects which are somewhere on the background. And now I will show you. I have the model here. My model is Vayan. She's excellent model because she doesn't move. If I tell her don't move, she will not move even the weeks. And I will show you the examples of how this focal depth works. So I will take my camera, and let me show you how it works. So here is Vayan, and now I will make a few photos. In fact, how can I make this effect even stronger? This is all about the aperture. The bigger aperture, it means the lower number of aperture on the camera I have, the focal depth is the smaller. sometimes if you make a photo of a group of people and some background, nice background, you want both of them to be focused, then you need to use the aperture something like 11, 16 or even more, and in this case the focal depth is much bigger. If you use aperture something like 2.8, 1.8, the focal depth is much smaller, and it also depends which is the focal length at the moment when you take the image. So now don't move, Vayan. I will make some videos, some photos of Vayan, and I will fix my my aperture now to the lowest possible level. In fact, this is the zoom camera, and zoom cameras have usually this aperture let's say flexible, and this camera is from 3.5 to 5.8. What does it mean? It means that when I have wide angle lens, so it means it is the lower scale, 18 millimeters, maybe 24, the aperture is bigger. As I zoom in, the aperture is optically smaller, so about 5.5. So also it's different from which distance I make the photo. So let me show you, let me explain you. I will now make a photo from this distance, and I will fix the aperture now. The aperture is fixed to 0.5. So this now I made the picture of Vayan, and now I will change the aperture 18. So now the aperture was something like 18, between 18 and 22. I will make the same photo, but I will move and I will zoom in. And the same. As you can see from the photos, in this case much bigger effect of focal depth was done because when I use the zoom in or zoom out. The aperture didn't have such a strong effect because in fact some cameras have aperture maybe up to 11 or up to 16. So if you have the option to use zoom in, if you are making, for example, some portrait, then it would be better if you go a bit further distance and zoom in this person. In this case, the background will be blurred much more if you make it from shorter distance and just change the aperture. If you can use both effects, it means to use big aperture and use also zoom in. The bigger zoom you have, the bigger zoom you use, but you must fix the frame of your object. And this is the way how you can play with the focal depth. In fact, sometimes you need to have a large focal depth if you want to make a photo of person in front and also the background. In this case, use setup for fixed aperture and set some big aperture, something like 11, 16. It depends on the weather. If there is a sunny day, you can fix even 22, and your focal depth will be maybe from the person here up to infinity. If you want to, if there is something which is not nice on the background, in this case you can blur it, and you will blur it if you use your aperture something like 2.8, 3.5. It means the maximum aperture which your lens allows you. And there is also some small tricks which you can use when working with focal depth. It means if you can't make blur your background, or you are not satisfied, in this case you can pre-focus the person. So you will not focus on myself, but you will focus maybe somewhere here. I will still be focused, but the background will not be will be blurred, will be not focused at all. So, but this needs kind of testing, because if you pre-focus it very much, then also I will be blurred a bit, and which is not nice. Working with focal depth is really kind of experience, and if you want to make a nice photo, please train it. Train it. Maybe you can have a model like Vian, or you can train it with the flowers, with whatever, but once you master focal depth, you will make much nicer photos. Did you like this video? Please give us the like, subscribe to our channel, and I will see you in some other video which will help you to increase your photography skills.